Welcome everyone to STEAM Skills website development. We are going to give it a few more minutes so that more people can join. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and begin. So welcome everyone. My name is Malen. I'm with the Plano Public Library, and I want to thank you all for joining us for STEAM Skills website development. Your microphones have been muted and videos turned off for this program. Please note that if you have any questions, you can type them into the chat. We will monitor the chat and bring questions to the presenter's attention. The presenters and chat moderators will get to as many questions as we can during the program. All relevant links for the program today will be posted into the chat. Today, we have the honor of introducing the Society of Women Engineers. SWE motivates women to achieve full potential in careers as engineers and leaders, expands the image of the engineering profession as a positive force in improving the quality of life, and demonstrates the value of diversity. SWE will present the STEAM Skills 5-week course on website development. Today, you will continue learning about website development with Neha and Maha. A few housekeeping reminders that we'd like to share with everyone. Note that this program is being recorded and will be made available on the Plano Public Library YouTube page for later viewing. Soliciting business or selling merchandise during library virtual programs is prohibited. And please be considerate of our presenters and one another throughout the program. Any inappropriate behavior will result in your removal from today's program. I will now hand it over to our presenters. Thank you.
All right, so hey everyone, welcome back to our web development program where we teach y'all how to build a website from scratch, specifically one where it's going to be like an e-commerce store where we sell clothes, or just, you know, a website that looks like a website that sells clothes. So we're going to continue on. So last time what we did was we built the nav bar, or the top of the website, and that just shows like all the like menu things at the top, you know. So we had like the title at the top that said runway, and then we had the nav bar part of it that just like had the menu. So now we're going to continue on and build like the middle part of it that has the home page, and we're going to build a website footer, which is the bottom of the website. So okay, so we're going to continue building on this file called index.html. So if we remember, HTML is the file where we write all the website code, and CSS is the file where we do all the styling, right? Like colors, fonts, things like that. So just to give y'all like a picture, this is basically what we're going to be building today. So this is the body of the homepage. So basically we're going to have like two boxes. So one of them says women's clothing, the other one says men's clothing, and you could even add more boxes if you wanted to. But these two boxes are going to be like the body of the homepage, and then this lower box is going to be the footer of the homepage. And the footer is going to have information like the title of the website, about us, how to get help, how to follow us, and how to subscribe to our emails. So we're going to build those two sections all on like the homepage basically. And the homepage is built in index.html. That's the name of the file. So switching over to our code, can everyone pull up their code from last time? And if you have questions, let me know. It might be in like Visual Studio Code, or it might be in this website called Replit. I can paste the link for Replit. And you'll need to like sign in to get your past code. So was everyone here the past two sessions? Or at least like last session, last week? Okay, so okay, I don't see anything. So I think most people are caught up. So if you were caught up from last time, then I'm assuming you had like all this code, and when you click the run button, you should see this show up. So you're gonna see the title of the page, which is runway, and you're gonna see this nav bar, which has all these like links that you can click to go to different pages, except we haven't really like made those links yet. That's something that we'll work on next time. But today we're going to focus on continuing to build this homepage, because right now it looks pretty blank, right? Like there's nothing in the middle, there's nothing at the bottom. So we're going to focus on building out this homepage so that it looks nice. So first things first, I'm going to hand it off to Maha, who's going to show you how to build the homepage.
Hi guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Sorry, wait. Okay, so this is gonna be okay, so let me share the link to the code in the chat. Okay, so we'll start with the HTML here. So just gonna go ahead and copy this code into my index.html project right here under the last div that we did last time. I'll copy it within the body in HTML tags, but under the div that we did last time. Okay, so as you can see, it's a lot of divs basically. And so all of these divs they're like kind of nested divs, and then you can see them like closing as the tabs go in and out, right? So you can see that this div has this closing tag, these divs have these closing tags, and so on. And then the same thing with this div and this div's closing tag. And then finally, the most outer div for the home page. And so they all have different classes. So like the homepage content, container, and yeah, item top and bottom. So those classes will come into play when we do our CSS. So the index.html is pretty simple. As you can see, there's nothing else except divs with different classes. So now we'll move on to the CSS. All right, so going into the CSS. So I'll take this CSS and copy it into my styles.css code. I'm just going to go straight to the bottom. So one key difference between HTML and CSS is that in the HTML, because these elements build up your web page, they should be in the order that you want them to show up. So like our nav bar is at the top, right? So we included it at the top of the code. And then we have our main content, like our home page. So then we include that next. So sometimes these elements kind of depend on each other for order. But in your CSS file, it's not like that. So if I wanted to, I could put this code like at the top of the file. I don't even have to include all these different sections at once. So yeah, that's a key difference. But basically, so we copy in the code. Did I already copy it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. So the CSS is where those classes that we mentioned come into play. So we can see that we're starting like a CSS element with a dot and then the class name. And then we have the actual like description of what it's going to look like. So a lot of the descriptions, like we've mentioned before, are pretty self-explanatory in terms of like what it exactly means. So like the margin top means the margin at the top of the element. And so the home page was a very large div and it contained a bunch of other divs. But this homepage div that contains everything will have a margin of 9 like viewports or like a certain type of unit at the top of it. And then we move on to have like the grid container, the item at the top and at the bottom. And so yeah, those are like they're just like different ways to kind of describe the margin, the position, and the text alignment. And we can see that it changes based on the class. And so this is kind of what's giving the spacing between all of the different components that will be on the home page. And then we finally have an item for the text as well, for the text that'll show up in the center of the divs. So yeah. So that's all from me for the home page. So now I'll pass it on for the next person to talk about the footer.
Oh wait, I thought you were gonna like show like the code and like running it.
Could you say that again?
Oh, I thought you were gonna like show the code and like run it.
Oh, okay. Yes, I can do that. Let me just make sure I've saved everything.
Yeah, just so we can go like step by step.
Okay.
Yeah, wait, so actually in that code, some part of it's missing. So there's supposed to be like, here, I'll paste in the right one into the document.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. It looks
Because it
kinda
looks,
weird.
you know, like the anchor tags are missing. Like the part that says women's clothing is missing.
Yeah, okay.
So
That
I
makes
pasted the correct one. It works.
Okay, so it looks like actually the initial code that was on the page didn't have everything that we were trying to put on the home page. So in the index.html file, I'm gonna recopy the code from that sheet that I sent earlier. So copy it, and then starting from this comment, this is the main content from the home page, to the closing div. I'll go ahead and just delete that and then copy in the code. Okay, thank you, Neha, for mentioning that. Okay. Cool. So we can see it's pretty similar in terms of how it was before, except that now we have a few additional elements that will be showing up like on the page. So again, the divs have their opening and closing tags, and it's always good coding practice to align those. So then as we go into each specific div, we kind of get into the actual elements. So like we looked at last time, we have the link, and then it's going to be linking to a women's clothing.html file, which we haven't made just yet, but that is something that'll be coming up. And then we have our image, and we have a specific class for the image. So we know that this image is going to be, so something about naming classes, it's also good practice to name it something that kind of makes sense or kind of relates to how you're going to be styling it. So specifically like this class, the name is image top row. So if we just give it a class, but we don't style it, it could be any kind of description, but it doesn't actually have those attributes, right? So if, so in our styles.css, when we take this class, we want to use the attributes that we can add to it to specify how it's going to be in the top row of the home page. And then we have the source, which is our assets and our women image. So in that assets folder that we have in the project. And then we have the text underneath the image. And then we have it again for the men's clothing page as well. Okay. Okay. Neha, do you want me to show what it looks like now as well?
Yeah, like without the CSS. Let's see what it looks like. And then you can explain like what the CSS will do.
Okay.
And like show that too. CSS is already in the Google Doc. Oh, you're getting
Yeah, I put it in the project already.
Okay, so you want to show what it looks like without any CSS.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you guys what it looks like. You don't have to make these changes to your code. You can leave your index.html and CSS as it is, but I'm gonna show you kind of what it looks like without the CSS in it already. Let me find where it is. Sorry, it's just taking me a second here. So now I navigated to the index.html file. So this is what it looks like right now. So we can kind of see that we have a little bit of space here, like I mentioned earlier. So we have the navbar ending, and then we have a little bit of space before the home page starts. And right now, so it's kind of following the order that, like I mentioned, like the order of the elements in the HTML file matters. So just following the order with the picture, then some text, and then the picture and some text. And then you can see like these are clickable. Of course, we haven't made the files yet for the click to go to a different file or to like a different page on the website, but we'll be making those in the next few weeks. But right now, this is what it looks like. And then when we add the CSS to it, oops. Copy the CSS. So now it looks a lot different than it did before. So we can see that these images are both on one row now, and then the text is on top of the images, and it has a certain look to it. So when we walk through what the code is doing, so we can see that the home page and the navbar have a much larger gap because now we've included 9 view widths. So it's a much larger gap than before. And then we have kind of like a container for our images, and they have certain padding. So now we have kind of like a distance between like the sides of the page or the sides of like the device screen and the image itself. And then we're justifying the content. So you can see that the images, they're spaced evenly throughout the page. So like both of the side margins are the same, and then the middle also has some space. So that's just a few of the CSS elements that are shown here. And then we have this image top row. So we're kind of giving these images like a specific width, and then giving the height just auto. So something that you can do is you can kind of look up what these different CSS elements mean. So when I looked up auto earlier today, it just means that it's giving the image like a height that fits within the div or the container that it's inside of. And depending on like what kind of device you're looking at, it'll change the height of the image to automatically show up in its entirety in the container. And so then we also have the same kind of, we have similar sections of CSS for the bottom items and the bottom row, which we haven't added in the HTML code just yet. And then we have the text. So we can see that we changed the text color to be white. We have a slight shadow behind the text as well. And so this text shadow is given in coordinates. So you can kind of see it's written like over and over. So this is kind of giving like coordinates and then also the blur of the text shadow so that you can control like the position and how sharp it looks as well. Then we have the font size, the family. So that kind of changes again like what the text itself looks like and some other attributes as well. So yeah. All right. Do you think we're ready to talk about the footer now?
Sure.
Can you guys see my screen? Okay, cool. So I'll give you guys a quick overview on how we're going to split up the footer of the website and then get to the code. So we're going to use a lot of div tags to group and divide our code. The first will be a main div tag for all of the footer with the class footer. And then we'll have 5 separate div tags for each quote unquote footer column. We're going to add each like code in each of our div tags to describe what each of the footer column does, like website name, description, customer service, icon, email subscribe button, etc. So this is kind of what our end goal for this session is like. So these are the 5 columns I mentioned before, all styled as well. Right now, the screen should look a little bit like this. So let me share the code with you guys. I'm having trouble accessing chat, so if someone else could copy the code, I put the doc in our shared Google Drive folder, if that helps.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, thank you. So I will copy and paste the code to my VS Code display. Yeah, and explain. So this is the HTML code for the footer. So as I mentioned, we'll start with this main div tag for the footer and then go along with the 5 different footer columns. We want them to all have the same class of footer columns to make sure that they are all styled the same. I'll kind of quickly run through some of the code and some of the tags we did use and implement last session, so I won't really explain them, but I can clarify if you guys want. So in the first website name footer column, we introduce this heading tag, which is denoted by H2. So we can actually have different types of heading tags from H1 to H6. And as we decrease the number, as we go from like H2, H3, the font decreases. So you guys can kind of play along with that and see the different changes in font there if you guys want. This P tag here is used to denote text. So we have this whole paragraph that's useful to describe what our e-commerce website's about. So we use the P tag here. With our next footer column help, we also use the ahref tag again. And currently we don't have anything linked here. So if you go to the page, okay, let me see. And go here, it just takes you back to the page we are at because there's nothing linked. Here in our next column with follow, we have these icons. So that's why we're going to use the image tag like we used last session to get the images from our assets folder. And finally, with our last subscribe column, we use this to input email address. So that's where we use this input tag to read in user data. So there's different attributes to this input tag. We have type, to indicate that we want text in for our input. You can also do other types of inputs like number, date, etc. And we see placeholder, which kind of, if you see on our website, it kind of gives this grayed out text in the background as like a placeholder for our text. And we have this ID attribute. It's kind of used to assign a identifier to whatever input that we have. It's kind of similar to variables, if you guys know what that is. So we use this email input ID later for our button tag that helps create a clickable button, which you see here, that you can click the submit button. So this line here kind of just lets you know the input that we want is our email ID, and when we click on the button. I think I did go over that pretty quickly. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. But those are most of the useful tags that are needed for the HTML part of the footer. So I think I'll hand it off to Neha to describe the styling of the website so we can get it from looking from this to this all nice.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. That was a great explanation. So
Okay.
now that we've done the footer, like HTML part of it, we have all the content on our page, right? But now we want it to look nicer. We want it to look like it's in 5 columns, because right now it's just kind of, let me share my screen. Right now it's just kind of looking like, it's just a bunch of text, but there's no real like organization to it. It's just like text, like some of it's bolded, some of it's small, but it doesn't really look that nice or presentable. That's what we're gonna do with the CSS. So we're gonna go to the CSS file. Yeah, this one. And I'm gonna paste this in the chat. Oh, okay, thanks, Maha. So yeah, you guys can like take that code, copy it from here, and I'll go over like what each thing does. So okay, so you go to style.css once again, and you're gonna go, wherever you pasted that like code for the homepage, you're gonna go below that, and you're gonna paste that in and click run. And you should have a nice looking footer where everything is like, it's nicely in 5 columns, it's all formatted. Each section has its own specific formatting. So we're just gonna step through that and see what each thing does. So first we have just like dot footer. Dot footer just like styles this footer container as a whole, like gives it that whole container like a structure. Like a margin, it aligns them so that they're at the top. It justifies the content to the center, it just does basic things like that. And it makes sure that all of our columns are like in a row, like all of our elements are in a row and not like vertical. That's an important thing. And then we also have footer columns. Again, that's just going to give a margin to each of these columns to make them look separate and not just like jammed together. That's the importance of a margin. It gives it some space. And then we have website name. That's just going to give styling to this footer runway. Then footer subtitle. That's just going to style each of these like about us, help, follow, things like that. And how I know this is basically I look at index.html, right? And I look at where, footer subtitle or something like that. So footer subtitle is used wherever we're writing like these types of titles, like about us or help or something like that. So that's how we can find out like which part of our CSS links to what thing on the website. And then let's see, footer text is just going to style any like basic text like this description right here. Footer text 2 is similar. And then we have footer social icons that's going to like style these like little pictures and make sure that they're in a column vertically and that they're aligned on the left side. And then footer icon, you know, similar. And then style for the input field. The input field that we have is right under this subscribe button where we have this like very little box where you can like type in your email and subscribe. That's what we're styling. And that's the email input box. And finally, there's just some miscellaneous CSS like input div, like the container for the input field that goes with email input. And then we have submit button that's going to style the actual like button that you click on to submit something. And, you know, styling a line break, that's just going to be aligned like probably below the page, below the input field. And yeah, that basically wraps up the CSS. So now you have like a finished index.html file. So now this is like a finished homepage, you could say, for like a classic like website. So if you're selling like clothing or something like that, this could be like a classic template for creating your own website. So if you wanted to personalize this, you could literally just like change certain elements, right? So like here where it says website title runway, you could literally just change that to something else and you could like personalize it to something else and you would have your own like homepage for your own website. So it doesn't have to be a clothing website, it could be anything. So feel free to like play around with it. I would suggest like making like a copy of this somehow. I'm pretty sure there's an option to make a copy and maybe just like playing around with it, seeing like how your website looks when you make some different changes, like change the font, change the colors, change the bolding, change like just anything that you want. So next time what we're gonna be working on is just like these like top buttons where it's like home, women, jeans. Like we're gonna be working on adding those like different pages to our website so that it's not just like one page. We actually have multiple pages. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. So good job today. We'll be sure, so when this video gets posted, we're gonna be sure to link the code, like all these documents that we've been showing you. We're gonna like paste these links probably under the recordings somewhere. We'll get in contact about that. And yeah, I think that wraps it up for this time.
Sure, I'll go ahead and share
Thank-
my screen. Give me a minute. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And I would like to give a special thank you to our presenters at SWE for this amazing, great 5-week program series. We appreciate you being here. And I'd like to share a few more resources with you as we wrap up today. We have our STEAM kits, and our STEAM kits include learning components from our science, technology, engineering, arts, and math to support STEAM-based learning. Our team STEAM kits focus on technology and problem solving, and we have the Kano computer kit, the Raspberry Pi 3 kit, the Little Bits Arduino kit, and I believe we have some stereo kits as well. So you might want to check those out at your library. For more hands-on STEAM activities, you need to check out the Plano Public Library catalog as well, and that will give you all the descriptions of all the different kits that we have. On 3D printing, we have 3D printing services offered at Davis, Harrington, and Parr Libraries as part of the Plano Public Library. We use 3D design software programs like Tinkercad, and you can use that or something else to design your own 3D model. All you have to do is submit your design as a .stl file on a USB flash drive, and let Plano Public Library print your creation. For more information on how to submit your 3D design, pricing, and 3D printing classes, check out the Plano Public Library website. Then we have LinkedIn Learning. Your Plano Public Library card grants you access to thousands of courses on LinkedIn Learning. You need to check them out. There are website design and development classes, and you can expand your skills on these particular areas by checking out courses on website design and development. Access LinkedIn Learning on the Plano Public Library website under Research and Learn. And it should be noted that Frisco residents do not have access to this service. Be sure to stay up to date with Plano Public Library by following our Facebook page and checking out our blog at planolibrarylearns.org. There, you can find recordings of past programs and other materials about how to take advantage of everything Plano Public Library has to offer. Please complete our program survey, which should pop up following this program. We value your feedback. Thanks again for joining us today for STEAM Skills Website Development.